G20 discussions this year and already also last year are very much shaped by a spirit of southernising global governance. This was brought in by Indonesia last year that held the presidency, is very much celebrated by India this year, and Brazil and South Africa, the upcoming presidencies for 24 and 25, are taking it up. It is communicating a different understanding, a changed understanding of their own role of these large transition economies with regard to shaping global governance. But it also communicates and formulates substantial questions to the credibility and legitimacy of the G7, of also Europe, with regard to their trustworthiness in having the global common good in mind when shaping and filling global governance processes. This has to be taken seriously, and if you now look at the G20 summit upcoming early September, it has to be very clear that the focus has to lie first of all on debt relief for those countries that are in substantial debt distress. Here we have to find ways through debt swaps, debt for climate swaps, instruments that enable debt relief further. Second, the focus has to lie on the mobilizing of capital, public but mainly especially private capital for climate action, as well as for the larger Agenda 2030 implementation. We have calculations from IMF, from people such as Amar Bhattacharya, that show us there are $2.3 trillion required until 2030 to progress on the climate front. Our UN Secretary General states we need $500 billion yearly in order to progress on the Agenda 2030. So immense capital required. The G20 has to progress on that front. And third, it has to progress and take a very clear stand, supportive stand on the reform processes of global governance. I'm particularly thinking here of the reform processes of the multinational development banks. Large transition economies have to have more of a say in shaping these multinational development banks. But I'm also thinking of the concrete suggestion to include the African Union into the G20, basically have the African Union take on a full membership position. Also here a clear signal and sign for a more inclusive approach to global governance. And Germany, Team Europe within the G7, within the G20, and the G7 and G20 as a whole should take clear stands for it.